Welcome back to GameScoop. I'm your host, Damon Hatfield. This is Greg Miller,
Hi.
Mitch Dyer,
Japan,
Colin Moriarty,
Hello.
and Colin. Last week, during the Game Developers Conference, you had the opportunity to talk with Keiji Inafune, Mr. Mega Man.
Yes,
as they call him.
Third time I've gotten to meet him. Yeah.
Was it still as sweet as the first?
It was. It was. Sweeter even.
Did he remember you?
Yeah.
Jinx!
Yeah, he did. He did remember.
Now you asked him. Obviously it's very well known that the Xbox failed to launch in Japan, figuratively speaking. It did actually.
It took
launch.
off and then just crash landed.
You asked him why he thought
Right.
maybe it didn't take off. Two Xbox consoles in a row failed to catch on in Japan. What did he say?
Well, I want to preface that by saying he was actually here to just, talk about Soul Sacrifice, and I just totally derailed the conversation to talk about other things because I thought he's too interesting to talk about
too
one
interesting,
game.
yeah.
He says things. He'll talk, and he's not like a PR bot at all. And so I wanted to ask him about this, and I never heard from anyone specifically why they think a Japanese person why they think the Xbox hasn't launched well in Japan, and it was always assumed that it was because it was not Japanese. And he basically confirmed that he thinks that the game didn't have exclusives, which I don't really agree with. Actually, Microsoft went out of their way to make a lot of exclusives in the beginning.
Dragon,
yeah,
Lost
Blue Dragon.
Odyssey.
Yeah, exactly. Specific hardcore RPGs. And games still come out there from time to time, but he basically said that it's because Sony and Nintendo are Japanese and that they are more likely and liable to support their domestic products there, which doesn't also account for why Apple is successful there.
That's the thing I wanted to bring up. When I first started going to Japan maybe 10 years ago, they had smartphones that were light years ahead of what we were using, here. But now you go to Japan today and everyone's just using iPhones and iPads. So they'd have no problem accepting that American-made product.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I think he's right, but I think that it's in the console space or the gaming space they might feel different maybe about some other products or whatever. But yeah, I didn't get into it too deeply with him about Apple, but
So obviously, the Xbox is very successful here. Me personally, I don't think, I really like the Xbox because it's American made.
But that's
do you
really what's
think-
under the surface for you, I bet.
No, I don't think so. Do you think if Japanese people have that mindset, is that mindset also shared by Americans? Like, do they want it? Like, do they like it because it's an American-made console?
I doubt it. I think that as Americans, you and I from the Midwest, we're pretty ignorant about everything. I bet a lot of people probably don't even know that the PlayStation is not. It's like, what? This isn't an American company? Like, I think we are very accepting as a nation, right, of this global
that's
ecosystem,
true.
right? There's in Back to the Future. Marty tells Doc the best stuff comes from Japan. Or China, wasn't it? I forget which one it was.
All the best stuff is made in Japan.
So
It's about Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
that leads us to the question. Microsoft is about to unveil the next Xbox. We don't know exactly
What?
when. We don't know exactly when, but we know
You run out.
I've got to go.
coming soon.
Yeah.
Probably this month.
Probably.
Yeah. Should they even release that console in Japan?
I think they have to. Microsoft has been very adamant about global launches, even if it's not necessarily the same day, right? The Xbox 360 did launch in Japan, I think a month, maybe less after its release in North America, hit Japan, failed miserably, sold like 100,000 units in its first month, and then just kind of tailed off, and now it's sold like 1.6 million to date in Japan, which is like 0.02% of the total sales of that console. That's insane. That is business-wise, that's terrible.
Yeah, but
don't do that again.
You just said they have to.
Yes,
there.
I think they have to. I think they can't afford to let that market go. They cannot afford to let Sony monopolize that next-gen console market.
You can't admit defeat.
Why? They don't have it now.
Sure, but I think they still need to try, especially now because the Xbox 360 took so long to get a lot of even third-party Japanese releases, right? Like we have Resident Evil hitting the 360, Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6. I think as time goes on, you're going to see Microsoft try to adopt more Japanese stuff earlier. We saw the attempt with Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey, maybe a little bit too late, probably not enough. Looking forward, you have to think that if they're going to release in Japan, which I think they will, they have to have a strategy.
There's a tipping point.
agree.
Yeah, I do. You have to go out there. We're talking about like how accepting I think America is right now of global consumerism, right? You have to keep trying to bring that to everyone else, right?
Why?
Because you want to be a global company, right? You want to be something that appeals to the most people. You want to have stuff. It's all about games. It's that's how it speaks, right? That's what Mitch is talking about. If you're going to launch the Durango Box 2012 and you bring it out and it's going to have great games, then people are going to want it.
2012.
Catch it.
TM.
2012. It's not even like-
Well, it's about its power. It's not about the year.
But if you try to infiltrate a market for 10 years, and it never catches on, why not just think, well, maybe this is
Maybe Microsoft has now identified what it is, whatever it is they're doing that leads them to fail in Japan. Maybe they've identified, hey, that thing that we did that led us to fail twice in a row, let's not do that. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it is the domestic thing that Inafune talked about. Maybe it's the software. Maybe it's the hardware. Maybe it's...
I mean, don't you want everyone developing? I mean, we keep talking about how this is probably the last console generation and we're moving towards this unified thing. You want everybody making games, or have the chance to make games for your system. If you're not going to put it out in Japan, you're not exposing it to developers and you become
that's not true because the console market is bigger in the West now than it is in Japan. So I think Japanese developers would still want to develop games for, and sell them in the West.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Inafune was saying, was that like a Capcom, like they never thought about making exclusive games ever because that's not how they make money. They understood it's like something in Japan is something like 15% of the console market. So it's like it's a readily shrinking market in terms of worldwide global consumerism, especially as emerging markets open up in Brazil and other places in Central and South America and in Eastern Europe. Those are huge markets that, frankly, PlayStation is going to dominate, I think. The PlayStation's already huge in Brazil. It's huge in Eastern European markets. And what I think you're going to find if Microsoft wants to launch in Japan is that they're going to do it because they feel like they need to save face there.
Exactly.
They're not Xbox sold about 2 million units there. And Xbox 360 is going to fail to even reach those numbers. So not only are they not selling, they're actually the numbers are actually declining. And you can say that that's within the context of a shrinking console market there, which it is because the handheld market and the mobile market there is huge. One thing I think people are missing out on is that Xbox started to emphasize Kinect a little bit, which is basically impossible to use in a Tokyo apartment.
It's like San Francisco.
Yeah, and there's just less space there. People are on top of each other, especially in big cities. If the new Xbox really emphasizes motion control, it's really going to sink that console there, I think. And I do think Microsoft will launch the system there, if anything, just to be like, well, we're going to lose money again on this, but we have to do it.
Microsoft is Microsoft, and I can't imagine them being able to sit there and eat crow and be like, you know what? Japan doesn't want us. We don't want them. There's no way they're going to do that. But that's an excellent point. I didn't even think about the fact that how we hear about how the new Kinect or whatever is going to be such an integral part of the next Xbox.
I think the assumption there, though, is that Kinect is going to be exclusively motion-based, right? Like we hear Kinect, we think dumb dancing garbage. But realistically, I think what the Kinect is going to be, especially if it's built in or mandatory or whatever it is, it's going to be a lot of voice stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the large support of it. It's going to be mandatory because they want you to use it. But I don't think there's going to be as much of an emphasis on like motion-controlled games that would impact a very small apartment.
Sure.
It would definitely be very unusual for a new console to launch and then not launch in Japan.
Yes.
But I just don't see that how that would benefit Microsoft. I don't think they need that market. Also, the Xbox is built around this like entertainment center hub idea of the living room, and there's all these services on it. Like I watch Netflix and Hulu Plus and HBO Go, and I have no idea if those services are even available in Japan. So then it's like, what if is it just about games? Okay, well now they don't have any games that appeal to the Japanese market, right?
Yeah.
I think worst case scenario, like the way I see it going, is Microsoft launches globally as rapidly as they can, if not day and date. Like November 22nd, 2013, we launch in every territory with the Xbox 3 or whatever it is. Or they launch in Japan a month later like they did before. But the way I see it going is they have that initial shipment go to Japan, and then that's how they gauge their success. If it sells out, great. They ship more. If it fails miserably, they back out again and say, well, we tried a third time, and it just didn't work out.
And
So
see,
they
I think
focus elsewhere.
for me, it strikes me as a bullet point on your presentation checklist that
We're
you're
in
launching in
every
Japan.
territory.
Exactly.
They're not gonna give that up.
How much? I don't. I'm not a businessman. I don't know if you've caught on. I don't know how much you actually lose. How much it costs to ship those consoles to Japan to have them there.
It's not even that though. Like the thing you have to think about is like Microsoft needs a presence there to support Xbox, and so this is going to cause them to have scores of employees in Office. They're going to have to translate things. They're going to have to localize everything. They're going to have to get those services that Damon was talking about.
Yeah, the marketing campaign.
I think they're going to do it. Like I do think they're going to do it, but they're going to lose money, and PlayStation 4 is going to trounce it. I mean, like, and we all know that already. So it does like kind of beg the question why, like Damon's asking. I think that's a totally valid question, but I think Microsoft's too big and too proud to say that. We're gonna give this to our biggest competitor, who might actually take it to us everywhere else in the world too. And you don't want to, because it seems like things could be shifting if these guys kind of diverge, which it seems like they are, and Microsoft's going in this direction, Sony's going in this direction. Only one of them can win. But I think the interesting thing that we're not thinking about too is that Wii U is like failing miserably. And so this, it's in like Sega Saturn territory, and whether it is, I mean, just that's not a judgment call. That's just that's what the data says. Like it's in bad shape. It's selling worse than the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox have ever sold, and they're 6 and 7 years old. So that also removes like another, unless Nintendo really gets behind it and relaunches this thing, which they might. You never count Nintendo out. But that removes a component from the market in Japan in which that might give an angle for Microsoft to compete with Sony, because no one really looks at Nintendo as Sony's competitor right now in the console space. PlayStation 3 is going to win that race with Wii U right now, and PS4 obviously is going to win that race in Japan as well. And while DS is really, or 3DS is really killing the Vita, and the Vita's kind of doing okay, but not really, there's a little space there for Xbox to carve out its niche again. But this is an economy of scale, man, and like if you can't sell lots and lots of games, then it doesn't pay to bring a console over there. So it's a question of business dynamics, but I also think it's a question of pride. And I think it's the latter that is going to get Microsoft in Japan. Probably with Xbox, I would say not worldwide, but probably in 2014 they'll launch it there.
Yeah, like we were saying, we do expect the next Xbox to be announced this month, so we should have more information on what Microsoft's worldwide launch plans are very soon. But thanks, guys, and all for you. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more video game discussions right here on IGN Gamescoop.